Thank you very much for joining us for today's Lunch and Learn. This is the third in the series. We hold them every month. We might take August off. It's just to give a flavour of some of the additional features, functionality, benefits that HSO can add to your Dynamics applications. My name is Steve Pooler. I'm a Senior Account Manager with HSO, and I'm joined by Max Dinser of HSO Innovation today. Just a little bit of a scene setting. Max did a fantastic presentation around data masking to HSO internal and some customers of ours last month. And the feedback was very positive as it focused on trying to protect sensitive data within an organization. And as we know, data is really the oil of the 21st century. Every company is processing and working with personal data on a regular basis. So it's really very important to protect the privacy, personal data of customers, and also to comply with legislation around data protection. So the feedback we had earlier this month was, as I said, extremely positive, and we had a few requests to see if we could repeat the experience. So pleased today to introduce Max, who's going to take you through the data masking functionality that we can offer. So I'll hand over now to Max. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve. And also a warm welcome to everyone from my side. I'm going to introduce myself in a minute, but welcome to a session and a topic that really is important for us at HSO, and especially important for myself, which I think we should take more care about, which is not only GDPR, but data protection in general. It's important that we as HSO take our customers serious in that topic, but also you as our customers or potential customers take your own customers as a serious asset, and treat also their data as a serious asset. And this tool is made to help you be more compliant to the data regulations, especially when it comes to sandbox and testing data. But let's get into the details. For today's agenda, we kept it quite simple. I'm going to do an introduction towards myself, but also towards the department that I'm working for within HSO Group, which is HSO Innovation, which is responsible to build applications on top of the Microsoft ecosystem and help you, our clients, become more successful. Then an introduction to the topic of data protection itself, because it can be quite complex and also a topic that a lot of companies still struggle how to get around with it. So we want to help you with that a little bit in introducing you to common terminologies, to fines that might be applicable, or reasons why you should actually take care about that. And then, as we always say, seeing is believing. So we're going to have a hands-on on the business application itself. As Debbie said, feel free to ask questions in the chat. I am happy to stay on the call afterwards for another hour if it's needed, if we have such a long discussion. So feel free to ask as many questions as you want at the end. About myself, Max Dinser. I'm the pre-sales consultant. Sometimes I jokingly say Chief Entertainment Officer within HSO. And they are mainly responsible for the department HSO Innovation, which builds the applications on top of the Microsoft ecosystem. I consult customers on ERP, CRM, but also on Azure technologies and modern workplace scenarios. At HSO Innovation, we believe it's also important to introduce yourself from a personal side. And yeah, that's what you see on the right side of the screen. I'm a big soccer enthusiast. My favorite club is my hometown club, Eintracht Frankfurt. I hope there's no Rangers fans in here or West Ham United, since we're in the UK. That might be a little bit challenging. But yeah, so much for that. Next to that, you can see me and my lovely family Christmas 2 years ago. I do like to work out a lot, more the cardio-oriented kind of sports, so swimming, running, cycling, and CrossFit. And the picture in the bottom right corner is actually also a picture talking about my hometown, which hosts the biggest wine festival of the world. So the area where I'm born from is Southwest Germany, where you get the Riesling wine from. And at the end of the year, all of these vineyards come together and celebrate a big festival, which is actually similar like the Oktoberfest, but then with white wine. And I can give everyone a recommendation to visit that place. End of September, it's taking place in Baduka. So much about myself. Let me introduce you to the department that I'm working for, which is HSO Innovation. So in the middle of the screen, you can see our mission and vision. And what we basically do since 2005 is support the countries like HSO UK, Canada, US, Germany, Netherlands, whatever it is, with business applications that extend the beautiful Microsoft ecosystem that we are working on. So you can think of business applications on top of Dynamics 365, finance and supply chain management, but also on the customer engagement platform, which we're going to see today. But also extensions to Azure, IoT scenarios, modern technologies like artificial intelligence, virtual reality, digital twins, few things around Office and SharePoint. And we also offer premier services around that. So we're a team of around about 40, 50 people that help you support and implement these applications as well. As we have product owners. One of them is actually on that call as well, who's Jakob Boscher. He's the product owner for the data protection solutions that we have, as well as for the field service applications. And we are responsible to keep documentation to support you in that implementation with these applications. And if you then look at what kind of applications we built, then we mainly see that we are in 6 areas. The top area is service and maintenance, so everything around assets. Think about a field service extension over there, but also think about enterprise asset management and maintenance management solutions. And then, yeah, where the two worlds come together is the world of rental, where we have a rental application on the EAP side, because you maintain your own fleet, of course, but you also perform field services on the customer side. Then there's a few smaller products on the distribution and retail side. And what we are actually going to talk about today is cross-industry solutions. So think of document management, or what we are about to see, solutions for data protection. And we believe these should be applicable for everyone and actually part of nearly every implementation. So much about the company, enough sales stuff. Let's get into the topic. And yeah, let's start with some terminology at first. So according to GDPR and most of the regulations, we are actually talking about so-called data subjects. And a data subject can be a person or an organization, actually everyone whose personal data is being processed by a so-called data controller. And data controller are persons that operate on their data. So that would be companies like us or like you, who are using CRM, ERP solutions to do transactions based on personal data. And these transactions or these activities we call so-called data processing activities. And yeah, I already explained the data controller. We are collecting that data and managing it within the EU. That's what the GDPR says. And then we also have so-called data processes, because sometimes you do business with other companies, for example, a marketing agency or a tax company that processes actually your data, your database on behalf of you. And you also need to be compliant with them, or you need to take care that they process and transact the data in the right manner. So what is personal data actually? And here you actually see a beautiful slide that shows you a few examples, but according to the European Commission, personal data is any data that is referable to a so-called data subject that I was just explaining to you. And that can be many, many different things. It could even be already your IP address that is referable to you. Can be pictures, contact informations like email address, or personal things like if you're married or not. Anything that is referable to you as a data subject is called personal data. And it's important, and it gets more and more important, especially with cybersecurity threats and a lot of issues that are occurring in the modern times, to treat that data with care. So as HSO, and together, according to the European Commission, we've developed 7 best practice steps to become a little bit more compliant towards that. The first step should be start evaluating what kind of data do we collect. I just make the reference of marital status. If someone is married, is that really information that you need to know? Well, if you're selling wedding dresses, that is probably a good thing to know. But if you are selling software like we are, might not be so important. So is that data that you need to store? Evaluate these things. Think about, okay, which data are we collecting? Which data are we processing? And what is the purpose on which we are doing that? And is it handy on a legal basis? If you've done that, then inform the persons, inform your customers, inform the persons that you store data from about what kind of data you have from them. So they are aware, okay, this company is having that and that data record of me. Also, according to GDPR, as well as other regulations like New York Shield or CCPA, you should set up a so-called data lifespan, because if you have a 2-year agreement with the customer, then you should also only store that data for 2 years. And if you don't need that personal data anymore and don't want to store it, then you should get rid of it and set up a so-called data lifespan. Fourth, and I guess most important step, is to also secure that personal data. Take every best practice that you can take to make sure there is no data breaches in that area. And the fifth step is also start recording these data activities, start recording your transactions, because once a customer has a complaint or there's a data breach, it's your responsibility, according to regulation, that you need to be able to say, okay, that was the transaction that we've performed, that's the area where it went wrong, and that is the person that has activated or had the activity on that. And also, as a sixth step, as I said, the data controllers evaluate also your subcontractors. Make sure they respect the rules that you're setting up as well. And last but not least, in GDPR regulation, that's a must-have. In other regulations, that's a should-have. In general, I would advise any company to start thinking about that in the modern time. Consider a person to be a so-called data protection officer. There must be one responsible person, or maybe even a whole team of responsible persons in your company that manage these data breaches, these consents, and all of these capabilities. So start considering calling up a DPO. And if you think about, data protection, why should I take care of that? Well, first of all, it should be best practice and good practice towards your customers, because they trust you with your data. And if you treat your customers with excellence, you can do better business with them, and they're going to respect you for treating the data with care. So from a customer satisfaction standpoint, as well as from a responsibility standpoint, I think that should already be a must-have. But if you say, okay, that's not important for me, then there is also actually a legal requirement to do so. You see a few links. By the way, this PowerPoint as well as the recording will be shared afterwards with you, so feel free to check out these links in details. But let me just quickly show you in a few capabilities what kind of statistics we actually have according to the legislation. Because what you see on this page, which is called Enforcement Tracker, you can see that in the course since the release in July 2018, already 1.8 billion of GDPR fines have been handed out. And you can see that there's actually a trend of high volume amounts, as well as if you look, for example, to the highest fines per country, then you can actually see that only 19 fines have related in a total value of 750 million in just Luxembourg. So this can be really, really high fines. They can go up into the million and cause a serious damage towards your business, as well as there are also different types of valuation. You might have data breaches, you might haven't informed your data subject in the right manner. So be responsible, take the business applications that we bring you to the table. They don't make you compliant, but they can help you become compliant if you take active practice on it. That being said, let's get back to PowerPoint and let's get into the tool itself, which we call Dynamics Data Masking, and we released that in the beginning of the year. So it's a kind of a new tool and also a really small application, but with a big business value. And what the solution basically does is it supports the requirement to change personal sensitive data in an sandbox environment or in a test, acceptance or development environment, which you've taken out of a production environment. Because if you look at the GDPR regulation, as soon as you take something out of your production environment, you need to anonymize or make that data unrecognizable, because you're taking out the belonging of a data subject out of the production environment where you had the confirmation based on a policy or something that you're allowed to use that. And then you're taking that out and storing that and locating that maybe at a different location. And that is actually a so-called data breach. So what the tool does is it allows you to anonymize as well as pseudonymize the data. You see examples for that. Anonymizing would be first name, Max Dinzer, turned into a sequence of letters, exclamation marks, whatever it basically is. This is really anonymized data and therefore unrecognizable. But now you might say in an acceptance or in a development environment, I actually want to have readable data. So what am I going to do about that? Because if you test things, you might want to test how a name comes out, or yeah, you want to see that this is a lead. So what we also added to it is to randomize so-called data. So you could turn my name, Max Dinzer, for example, into Mickey Mouse. So you still have readable data, but it's not referable to me as a data subject anymore. And the good thing about that is these anonymization flows, they can be implemented for any custom entity that you have within Dynamics 365 CE. So that allows you to anonymize leads, contacts, if you have developed or done a customization that keeps data, no matter what it is, it anonymizes or randomizes it based on the workflows that we can build with that tool. And it also supports bulk deletion for things like the audit history or the notes and posts that you have within Dynamics 365. And that's actually all it does. So it's a rather simple tool, but from a legislation standpoint with a really, really big impact. And therefore, to show you the solution live, let me jump into the system. What you can see is that I'm now in my sandbox environment for Dynamics 365. Customer engagement. You see I'm in my application data masking, but yeah, you can also see I have all of my applications like field service, sales, customer service in here. So you can embed that actually where you basically need it and where you want to have these flows. And what you can see here on the left side is that I have a list of leads, accounts, and contacts. If I, for example, in the leads, you see that these have already been anonymized while the contacts are being in a randomized state. So this is a sample record of data. It could be any entity, as I said, you can basically think about. You can have also imports for sample data with this application. And what we basically do is if I now want to take this set of contacts and want to anonymize that or randomize that, I can simply go to the settings over here. And you can then see that I have a bulk anonymization configuration over here. And you can see that I also activated a randomization as well as anonymization workflow for these three entities that I was showing you: accounts, contacts, and leads. And if I now want to take, for example, the contacts and anonymize them, I can jump into this record over here. I can also, for performance purposes, bypass customizations or plugin extensions that I've done. And under setting values, you can see that every linked attribute or field that is on my contacts records, like for example, birth date, first name, last name, middle name, I can actually define how that flow should run. Should it anonymize it? Should it randomize it? Should it put it into a certain kind of string? So I have the full control of everything that is basically referable to that. If I now go to this record, you can see that I have a button on top of here, which we call Start Anonymization. And if I click on that, then the system is checking my environment instance and therefore giving me a security level. You also don't want to have your complete database by accident completely anonymized or randomized. So this is a little bit of a security step in between where you have to type in an organization code that you really want to do that. So I'm typing that in. And as soon as I now say OK, you can see that my anonymization workflow starts and is going into progress, as well as on top of here, I also have my notifications, which tell me that this workflow is going to run. I did a test of that 2 hours ago, but as soon as it's basically updating it again, you can see we also have a dashboard over here. And if I refresh these records, it might take a little bit of a moment of time till it starts running. Also depending on how large is your data set, of course, but in general, we see a really performant solution. You see it has already changed into anonymization and has anonymized therefore all of my 150 records. So if I go back to my masked contacts over here, you can see they are now non-recognizable. Another functionality of the tool is also that we can here bulk delete, for example, the audit history or the notes or the posts. And depending on what I want to bulk delete, similar like with the anonymization flow, I also have a button on top of here. So if I now go into Augur and type that in again, just for security's sake, say, okay, again, a process flow is running in the background and therefore bulk deleting my audit history. So if I then go to my homepage again, open up my menu, you can see the bulk anonymization has started. And if I go into one of these records and go to related and click on the audit history, and the audit history loads, then we will see that this record is completely emptied by the audit history. Maybe just give it a moment to load. Okay. As the job run. Yeah, now it's gone. So you can see we can get rid of notes, posts, audit history, and therefore make sure that your database is really cleaned according to the GDPR regulations. And that is a really powerful tool, small functionality in itself. That is actually already the complete demonstration of the functionality that we offer, but it has a big impact, especially according to the fines, and allowing you to be compliant towards testing purposes, development purposes, and towards GDPR best practices. If we now go back towards PowerPoint, we actually have two business applications. What I was showcasing to you today is Dynamics data masking. As you've seen, its purpose is for bulk deletion, bulk anonymization, or randomization, as well as allowing for sample addresses and sample names. Mainly used in the non-production environments because you want to make sure that you can anonymize data in that, and is really a tool for system administrators. In the beginning of the presentation, I was talking about the 7 steps, as well as recommending of having a so-called data protection officer. For data protection officers, we also have a second application, which is called Dynamics Data Protection. And that is meant for a daily use to support the data protection officer in, for example, managing consents, setting up data policies, managing data protection requests, also allowing him to anonymize single records based on the rights to be forgotten, and is basically the central workspace such a data protection officer can use to manage all of the data breach cases and the contracts and all of the activities in there. If there's interest to getting to know that solution as well, feel free to reach out to me. We get a webinar recording on that, or we can do, based on a business use case you have, we can do a demonstration. Same counts, by the way, for data masking. If you want to further investigate that tool, feel free to reach out to us. And yeah, that would be now the presentation and what we've basically prepared for today. And therefore, I would like to thank you for joining us.
Thanks very much to Max for taking us through the data masking. Just a reminder, 21st of July, excuse me, we'll be holding another lunch and learn, and it'll be focused around Power Platform, Power Application Services. What is it? Why it can be useful for organizations? We will also provide several use cases and demonstrations of applications which we have developed for some of our customers. Some of these customers are Dynamics users, some of them are not, but the application platform team would be delighted to show what they can put together in a very short time frame to address a number of different requirements. And just a reminder, that will be coming up on the 21st of July, and invites should be going out to you next week. And I would encourage you, if you can, please fill in the questionnaire which has been logged in the chat. We do read all of the answers, anonymized or not, and they do influence what we are planning to put into the agenda items over the rest of the year. And I think with that, I'll draw this to a close. So thank you very much indeed for attending. Thank you very much for joining us, Max, and thank you for your help in organising absolutely everything, Debbie.